Hi, this is Eternal King, bringing you another LOR video today. Sorry about the mic quality for the past couple of videos. I had my recording mic being used for other work projects other than, YouTube, which is more of a hobby of mine. So I want to talk a little bit about leveraging your opponent's play patterns. So let's say you have two meta decks. You have meta combo ramp, and then you have Ziggs Poppy. So assuming you're playing against a competent player who's on an alt account, because that's, a lot of what you'll run into, is people kind of practicing matchups in a lower rank setting to try to improve the way that they play at a higher rank setting. Because again, high ranks can be very insular. You have, known factors and known variables, and it's not always a great determination of how good you are at actually playing in a ladder setting. So a lot of players will have alt accounts. So anyway, so I just recently played that game where I'm playing against, probably someone who's quite high level on an alt account. And I'm playing Ziggs Poppy and they're playing ramp. So I know this deck. I know this deck because I've examined it and I've made a video talking about it. I understand its strengths and I understand its weaknesses. The strengths of this deck is that it's exceptionally good for board clearing. It has Blighted Ravine and Avalanche at slow speed. Therefore, and it has Vile Feast. Therefore, when I opened Mulliganed against this deck, I literally tossed out every single one health, all my one drops that are one health, I just tossed out of my hand, which is the opposite of what you normally do when you're playing an aggro deck. I tossed out every single one drop I had with one attack because I knew that I could play three of them and then a Vile Feast, a Vile Feast or two would just kill all of them. And those one drops would be useless. So I knew the matchup and I knew the play pattern. Speaking of the matchup first, I knew off the mulligan what I had to do, which was toss out all my one drops and then pull in a more valuable hand. And I did that successfully. He had no good Vile Feast targets. Now, step number two, which is leveraging the play pattern, he open passed into me. And he thought that, well, I'm the aggro deck, I have to develop. I have avalanches and blighted ravines, your move creep, basically. And my thing was as well, what you don't realize is I've actually made a change to the deck composition to leverage open passes and pushing more damage on the attack at burst. So, and again, I showed you that list before, and I did show you that list. And it is the inclusion of the two Brothers Bond. So I only had two creatures on the board, and I believe those creatures were something like a Stone Stackers and like a Bandle City Mayor, because again, they weren't weak to Vile Feast, and they're higher value cards in respect to this deck, which is mostly, Crimson Pigeon's okay as well, Legion Rearguard's okay, but I tossed Saboteur, I tossed Beard, House Spiders I saved for later for a tactical play, and I was just like, I just played slow. I slow played an aggro deck. And I played around the Vile Feasts and I played around the Avalanches. Open pass Avalanche? No way. I just passed right back to myself. I had the attack token. Open swing Brothers Bond. And I pushed something like, on that attack, obviously with both units having 4 damage, I pushed like 8 damage on that open swing. So that play alone not only saved me card advantage, not only took away my opponent's tempo and messed up his game plan, but it also allowed me to push 8 damage. Just by the inclusion of Brothers Bond and understanding the weaknesses of this deck and understanding the strengths of his deck, I was able to instantly win that game. There was nothing he could have done to win that game once I had kind of calculated what he was doing, calculated what I was doing, made the appropriate deck changes to shore up the weakness of the deck, and play an unusual play pattern and an unusual mulligan that threw him off his game plan, which was the Vile Feast and Avalanche spam. So that was very, very easy. Exceptionally easy to do. Any player who's, made it to Masters, even casual players like myself, should be able to make those adjustments. And then tech number 2 is I waited for his 9-drop to land. I kept talking about how strong the new 9-mana champion is. He is what makes, Volibear is what makes ramp playable. So again, only by having 2 creatures on board that were buffed by the Brothers Bond, I forced the Volibear play to kill those 2 creatures. Now he's out of mana. He's tapped out, right? Volibear's all his mana. He killed 2 creatures, and I have all of my mana still, where I can absolutely, I can spam 2 House Spiders, and now I'm 4 wide again. You know, just because I saved those house spiders and didn't let him get Vile Feast value, I am now 4 wide again after his Volibear play, which is huge. Absolutely massive. And then I played a Ziggs. Because he's basically, you know, that was the card that I had. It could have been a Legion Saboteur. It would have been the same thing. But I had the Ziggs, and he was only 2 mana off of the Bandle City Mayor. So all I had to do at that point, now that I had successfully baited out all of his removal, baited out his big play, played an unusual play pattern, took his open pass, and flipped it back to me with the Brothers Bond. I had done all these things right. Now the last thing was the burn. And all I had to do was Noxian Fervor a couple times, because that game's, you know, based on all my calculations, my adjustments, my leveraging the opponent's linear play patterns, understanding how pro players play this game, which is to always, you know, basically take the open attack spam to face. Like, that's how pro players play this game. Life is a resource, take the open attack spam to face, hit your win con faster than the opponent, open attack them harder than they open attack you. Like, that's the Majin Bay style of play. Understanding that, you can absolutely just destroy people on ladder, because again, you just you approach it a different way. You play the swim way, which is, you know, a little more freeform, a little more unusual. You tech weird cards. You will absolutely destroy pro players on ladder. You know, they'll get to masters and they'll get to top 10 or whatever, but you still get to laugh in their face when they go to their alt account. And as a casual masters player who, you know, isn't even really in the scene anymore, you can take that game so hard and so decisively that there's literally, you'll make them look like they're a noob that just started playing. You know, they're in silver because they're on their alt account, but you make them feel like they belong in silver and they should stay there. So that's leveraging play patterns in LOR. And by doing that, you can become an excellent off-meta player. I would consider myself quite off-meta. Even when I'm playing a deck like this, I'm playing a card as a 2-of that no one would play in this deck. But it wins so many games. So I'm off-meta in everything I do. I'm off-meta in my ramp choice, which I prefer the Targon. I'm off-meta in my aggro choice, where I have the weird tech. Even the way that I've run Pirate aggro before, when Samara was really good, was unusual in that shell. So again, the more experience you have with the game outside of the pro scene, the more you can beat pro players, which is kind of funny. You know, kind of a one-off setting. But you'll beat them so decisively that, like, they might as well have gone into that game off the mulligan and just instantly conceded. There was no chance he was going to win that. So this is Eternal King signing out. Remember to always leverage your opponent's play patterns when possible.